Welcome to Faith Talks Wood podcast. I'm Will from Flatwood Works.
And I'm Tom from Mountain Valley Maker.
And we're a podcast talks about everything from Jesus to joinery and a little bit of everything in between, and some leather work from time to time as I'm getting into that. So, Tom, I talk about my new hobby of Bible rebinding, and I've had a hard time finding a leather supplier near me. You'd think living in Amish country that there'd be like a tannery somewhere down the road or something. I couldn't find anything, so getting stuff from Hobby Lobby, and not the best quality. It's just I'm getting into the hobby. Well, I did a Google search and found that there is a tack and leather repair shop about 25 minutes from me. And so I looked it up, and I was like, oh. So I called them and I said, hey, I just want to buy some leather. I got into Bible rebinding. I just want to buy some leather. And she's like, oh yeah, come on out. So Saturday I grabbed Eli, and him and I went out to this tack repair place, and quite the experience. She been doing it for like 40 something years, and she is this just small little old lady that still rides racehorses today. And she had this dog that was barking, and then I don't know where a parrot comes flying out of the side of the room, scares the crap out of me. My son, Eli being almost 5, grabs his hold of me. He's like, what was that? But yeah, she was really nice. I ended up getting really nice leather from her for almost nothing. And I was like really surprised at it with, the quality. And I already rebound one of the Bibles that we're going to give away in the giveaway for the podcast here for the 100th episode. So we'll make sure you check that out. We'll talk about that a little more later. But so I did that, and I got this, all this nice leather. Well, I had ordered a sample of a specific leather from Rocky Mountain Leather, and it came in the mail today, and it's really nice. But it's also almost $20 a square foot for the leather, which is insane. Normal, anywhere from like $7 to $10, $12 a square foot is kind of your average. And this stuff is extremely expensive, but it's exactly what I was wanting. So anyways, kind of had some fun time with leather, but I've also done some woodworking, and we'll talk about that later. I've actually made sawdust, but yeah, it's been fun. How's your week been? Weekend, I guess it's Monday now.
Oh, big good, man. Our weather here's finally, I think it's going to finally stay spring. I'm not sure. It's just been up and down, like freezing and snow.
Here.
Literally, we had snow 4 days ago, and then today it was almost 70 degrees. So it has been crazy, but the 10-day forecast looks like warmer weather is here to stay. So I have been working outside, getting everything ready. Our irrigation, which comes off the Colorado River, get opened up here in a couple weeks, and getting everything prepped to plant pumpkins and corn. And yep, that's pretty much what I've been doing. And I had big sign install, and I went to Moab, Utah to look at a job, put in a bid and got it. And so I'll be going back to Moab next week to do a pretty big job, 2-day job. So yeah,
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, speaking of the Bible rebinding and the giveaway, just want to let you guys remind you that we have a giveaway going on for the podcast. We hit 100 episodes and got some awesome sponsors to sponsor the podcast and be part of this giveaway. And one of which is myself, Willie's Wood Finish. We're going to be giving $100 to first place and $50 a second. And then I'm going to rebind a Bible to give away for the winner. But Tom, you want to talk about the other giveaway sponsors that we have?
Yeah, Surf Prep Sanding, which we know and love. $100 gift card to first place, 50 to second. And remember, when you go on the Surf Prep's website, when you go to checkout, use code FAITH and you get 10% off. So $100 and 10% discount go a long way toward a nice 3x4. And Loader Road Goods, which we had on the podcast, was it last week or the week before? My memory's fading now. they manufacture leather products and amazing stuff. Make nice shop aprons, or with Mother's Day coming up, be a good opportunity to go in there and get your wife a bag or something like that. And Bob Claggett, I like to make stuff, has donated $100 gift card to First and 50 off of his Fusion 360 course. And of course, Cadence manufacturing of the Jenny bit. So even if you don't have a CNC, you can go in there, get you an upcut or downcut or compression bit and use it in your trim router or regular router. So an amazing prize pack, $500 worth of gift cards to First Place and 50 to Second. So, and you have until April 9th at, we're going to hop on at 9 p.m. your time, 7 p.m. my time on Instagram and do the drawing. And been pretty excited about all the entries we've had. So you guys got pretty dedicated listeners, man. So go in there, get yours filled out.
Yeah, it's been fun. Remember, faithtalkswood.com/trivia. Get all the questions over there and see if you can answer them. We've had have some good responses. I've been impressed, honestly, how well people are doing. So that's really fun. Well, today we have a very special guest on the podcast, and somebody that I think Tom and I have been watching on the YouTubes for a long time, and happened to reach out to him. Tom did, and found out that he is a believer, and we are very, very excited to have Chris Schoenberg on the podcast. Chris, welcome to the podcast.
Hey guys, glad to be here. Can you hear me now with this new mic?
Oh yeah.
Less echo?
Yeah. that was kind of funny. You just out of nowhere, a mic comes on a boom. I'm like, this dude is amazing. He just pulled a mic out of nowhere.
Yeah, I moved over here to kind of my editing station, and I was thinking, sitting right here, I was looking around for a cord, and there it is. So got it plugged into my laptop, and good. I'm glad it's working, and maybe a little bit less echo.
Oh man, tell us a little bit about yourself, Chris.
Well, how far back do you want me to go?
Well, just a little bit
general,
about who you are, where you're at,
Okay. So I'm from Michigan. I was born and raised here. I spent a little jaunt out in North Dakota in the Air Force for a while. I have a wife and 3 kids. I have a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 3-year-old. We moved to this town, Portland, where I was fortunate enough to find our dream piece of property about, 2017, I think. It's 2017, 2019, maybe 2019. So about 6 years ago, had this pole barn in it, and it was a perfect thing for my woodworking shop. It was a dirt floor, uninsulated, so I spent a bunch of time and money and renovated this thing and turned it into my dream woodworking shop. And then upstairs, it's a little gambrel roof style pole barn. And so it's about a 700 square foot space that we also turned into our apartment where we've been living for the last 3 years with those 3 kids and 700 square feet while we started this journey of building my dream timber frame house. And all the while, I have become a full-time woodworking / home building YouTuber, I guess. So I started back in I think I've been full-time for over 5 years now. And you mentioned Bob Claggett earlier. I actually met him at the very first Workbench Con, which I just got back from not too long ago. And I was a small startup channel kind of at the time, but having some pretty good initial success. And was talking to him and Jimmy DiResta and some of the other people that I am hugely inspired by. And he sent me home with his book that he wrote about his journey of quitting his job and going full time. I read it on the plane ride home, and it wasn't probably a couple months after that really looked at our lives. And I think God had a lot to do with pushing me in those directions, and with those interactions with Workbench Con and Bob Claggan and stuff like that, and the way the channel was going. Talked to my wife and made the decision to quit my job and become a full-time woodworker slash YouTuber, and it's been an incredible journey ever since. So I guess that's in a nutshell, more or less, kind of who I am and what I've been up to and why we're talking.
That's awesome. And just for our listeners, Chris, this channel is Third Coast Craftsman. And so we probably should have entered, more people probably know you as that than they do as Chris.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been watching your channel for a long time. And
well, thank you.
The one thing and the reason for it, you are a phenomenal teacher.
Thanks,
dude. And I think one of the very first videos, I can't remember what it was. I remember so many of them, but when I was trying to learn hand tools, and I should say I'm still trying to learn. I got a long way to go to get where you are, but I actually bought all my Japanese saws off of your website. You had a link from the video. But you did such a great job of explaining why to use each saw and when. And
I appreciate that.
So you definitely have a knack for that.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. And you were talking beforehand that you're over in Michigan, and before we started recording, said how of a long and hard winter it's been.
Yeah,
I live not far from you, but and it has. Like, I feel like it's probably one of the worst winters we've seen in going on a decade almost.
Yeah, it was a tough winter. I totally agree. The last two winters were pretty mild, especially last winter, which God kind of graced me with some nice weather to work on my house, which 2 years into this build. But last year we were trying to get the walls and the roof, all these SIP panels on the structure. And so we worked like all through the winter, and, we had a lot of nice weather, a lot nicer than what is kind of traditional around here. But yeah, we kind of paid for it this year. It was a long, hard winter. February was brutal. It was like a lot of seasonal depression. And once we kind of hit March, I always feel like March is the end of winter, even though we have a lot of nasty days in March. But had some nice days, some warm weather, and a lot more sunshine. It's been feeling just so much better. There's a real thing with that seasonal depression, especially in Michigan. I don't know, Colorado, I've always heard very similar like temperature climates to where I'm at here in Michigan. But when it's not, from what I understand, when it's not snowing in Colorado, it's like blue skies and sunny and beautiful. Where Michigan, we have prevailing like southwest winds. So all this warmer, moist air comes over Lake Michigan and just creates cloud cover all winter long. So we hardly have any sunny days, especially in like January and February. And it starts to get to you. So I'm glad to be done with that.
Yeah, it's similar here in Pennsylvania. We're right on Lake Erie, so the lake and where lake affects snow, and we got, was it Thanksgiving night? We got like 4 foot of snow in 2 days.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah, it was insane, and so it has been a long,
early
hard
too for
winter.
that much.
It is for us, definitely. So tell us about your journey to faith. Did you grow up in a Christian home? When did you come to your relationship with Jesus? Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I'm very happy that I was raised in a church. My little small town that I grew up in, Stockbridge, Michigan, we were Presbyterians. My mom and dad weren't from that town. My mom grew up Catholic. My dad grew up Lutheran. And when they moved to Stockbridge, and they went and tried out several different churches, and they fell in love with the Presbyterian church. And so that's where they've been members ever since. I was a member very early. Like, you went through confirmation when you're kind of like a teenager. I know every denomination kind of has different things, but became a member, I think, around like 13 or something, just kind of a fun thing for a kid to feel like you're the first time you're a member of something officially. Right. And yeah, I really loved growing up in that church. It's really sad to see how a lot of those churches are in the small towns now. They're like just a husk of what they used to be. When I was a kid growing up there, we had cool Christian kids, and I can't remember, but I think they used, this is like embarrassing, I think they used like KKK as the acronym for that, cool Christian kids, and they used the K's.
Oh my goodness.
I can't remember, but I don't know, it's stupid stuff like that. But anyway, it was a great place to grow up in. Definitely not like racist or anything. But a lot of kids, a lot of youth. Now it's just, there's like no one there. And, we used to have an organ player, one of the last organ players in the area. And then we had a choir that would be up there during the service, and, probably like 50 to 70 people in the congregation. Now there's probably like 20 or 30 when I go back home. My parents still live there, and we'll go to church, and it's definitely really sad. And kind of the same thing I've run into here in Portland, trying to find a church. Kind of those Protestant churches that have like traditional services, which I kind of prefer, and there's like no one there. And it's kind of like the contemporary churches or the Catholic churches are really the only ones that I see that have any kind of congregation anymore.
Yeah,
but
that's kind of how the church was. I grew up in South Carolina. I think a lot of it has to do with that if they don't keep an influx of kids in the church and keep a very vibrant, active child's program, youth program, so that there is the next generation of adults in the church, then what ends up happening is all those members get older, and as they start to die off, the church just seems to get smaller and smaller. And I think the key is that you've got to keep the whole family involved from young age all the way on up. And
yep, definitely.
Yeah, it's a tough thing for sure. The unfortunately, the culture wants the entertainment side, right? The seeker sensitive church model became popular in the 90s, and I'm a drummer and I play drums at church, and so while I really appreciate that style of worship, I also appreciate the traditional singing hymns and stuff. And people my age and younger aren't they're not into that. It doesn't capture them, right? Their attention, being YouTube and algorithms and all that stuff. Like, yeah, some of that, it's hard. It's a hard thing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So, are you guys part of a church now then?
No, we're still not. I've been internally debating this for some time about joining the Catholic Church in town. Because my wife actually grew up Catholic, and when we had our kids when they were in kindergarten and preschool, they have a little Catholic school here, and we really liked it. But the class sizes are only about 20 kids per like grade, so it's really small, and it's quite expensive. We really liked the religious aspect of their like learning and teaching. So thought that was really nice, but with building the house and stuff, like I said, it's quite expensive. We just switched over to the public schools, but I really liked the traditional service a lot. But I didn't grow up Catholic, so I have to go through the classes and all that kind of stuff. And I've had kind of some internal feelings about it. I kind of I'd rather just be able to go to the church. I've been a lifelong Christian, and whether Catholic or Protestant, it's the same thing minus some ceremonial things. And there's some of the ceremonial things that the Catholic Church does that I would want to not necessarily participate in, like confession and things like that I just, growing up Protestant, don't necessarily believe in those parts of it. But I really like the service. I really like that traditional service. It's so beautiful. It's so, I kind of like the seriousness of it, the pomp and circumstance. I just grew up in a church like that, and I like it. And so We're probably going to go to it. There's also a big Catholic church in just the next town over. And that's one thing I really like about this little area that I am in Michigan. This like Portland, this Westphalia area next to me, and Puamos has a very strong Catholic presence. And you like see that in the community. It's just a good community, you know. And I think because there's such in the little town that I grew up in, Stockbridge, there wasn't really a big Catholic church. It was all Protestants, and which is totally fine. But it's just the Catholic church has survived kind of what the Protestant churches, I feel like, have it in the small towns. They still seem to be doing really good, I guess, at least here where I'm at. They have a very strong, like you can't hardly find a seat at that Catholic church in town. And, you know, they have the Knights of Columbus that put on a lot of cool events. They had the daddy-daughter dance that I just went to with my daughter a couple weekends ago, and a lot of really cool things. So, you know, I think it's a really great part of this community, and it would be a good community to be a part of, because we don't really have kind of a home right now as far as that goes. And the other options that we've found have been kind of like the more contemporary and just doesn't do it as much for me. So probably gonna end up joining the Catholic Church, which is fine.
Yeah.
It's totally fine, you know. It's but
Yeah. My
Yeah,
mom,
I mean, the important thing is,
oh, I'm
I
sorry.
was just gonna say the important thing is the community. But also, you know, the Protestant Reformation happened because of the kickback from the Catholic Church, right? They didn't want indulgences and stuff like that, and so, you know, kind of having that solid foundation of like the sola scriptura, which is the Bible alone, which the Catholics don't hold to. Again, they do a lot of really, really good, and you know they're
Yeah.
really involved in their communities and stuff. But
they are.
yeah, I'd say the Protestant version of Catholic, as far as traditional, would be Presbyterian. And your Presbyterians are really, really focused on Scripture, and there's a couple of them that I listen to that I really enjoy. But
Oh yeah.
yeah, that's good, man. At least, you know, getting into Hebrews says, you know, don't forsake meeting together like some have. It's very important to be part of something. So
It is.
but
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they, like the reason there's more Catholics like up there is just because of the way people settled around the country.
Oh,
And
for sure.
because if you go to different parts of the country, it's like you might not even hardly see a Catholic church, you know?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, it's a very strong rooted like Catholic
yeah. But my mom
people that moved here.
and her husband, they went to Presbyterian church, and they have now two services. One of them is the traditional service, and where they play the organ, piano, and then they have what you would call a more contemporary service, and so that way they can kind of attract the younger crowd and the older crowd, and you know everybody has what they want. Our church does a mixture, and I like it. You know, we'll literally play a contemporary song and then roll right into a hymn. It's phenomenal. So that way I get a little bit of both. I like it.
Yeah, it's good. That's a good mixture.
Yeah, Erie, PA, where I work, we don't live in Erie, but it's huge Roman Catholic. A lot of the Catholic, it comes with the Italian, you know, culture. And so a lot of the Roman Catholic you'll see where there's lots of Italians and stuff. And so, yeah, Erie, I think a lot of places along the Great Lakes, really, if I'm honest, there's a lot of Catholicism that's rooted in there. So,
yeah,
very, very good. So now you said you were in the military. What did you do after the military before the YouTube stuff? What was your career, and what brought you into the YouTube woodworking and that story?
Well, when I got out of the Air Force, I started going back to school, and I was going to school at the local community college, doing like my generals. My goal was to get a degree in mechanical engineering, and so I was doing my general associate's degree at the community college, and then I was going to transfer over to Michigan State for their engineering program. Well, while I was getting my general associate's degree, I got a part-time job as a security guard, and I bounced around different places. And one of the places, they have you work at a lot of different locations. And one of my locations I worked at was Davenport University, which is kind of a private, smaller school in Michigan. And they have their own like public safety department too, and they kind of augment that with contracted security as well for certain hours. And they really liked me, and they had this a position opened up in their public safety department, and so they wanted me to apply for it. So I applied for it. I was kind of hesitant because I wanted to, still trying to focus on school and not pick up a full-time job, but I did. And then one of the benefits of working for Davenport is you get free tuition. And Davenport doesn't have an engineering program. They're like a business school. So I kind of unfortunately switched my degree to finance, and which was kind of the closest thing to like a mathematical thing, because I kind of have that kind of mind. And so I ended up getting my bachelor's degree in finance while working there. And I was also, I've always been somebody who likes to build things, remodel things, stemming all the way back to when I was in middle school, like working with my grandpa in his woodworking shop. That's where it all started. My grandpa was I would call him a master woodworker and master carpenter. He'd been doing it for many, many, many years. And while I was in, middle school and high school, I built several projects out in his shop with him. And during the summers, I would help him do like handyman projects while he was retired. He would still be like a handyman and go around and build decks for people or fix things. And so, and speaking of the best Christian person I've ever met, my grandpa is a huge inspiration and influence on me. A very devout Christian. He was a Lutheran and never missed a Sunday. Built their church with a bunch of the guys. All sorts of stuff. Just a great man. So I was going to school at Davenport. My grandpa had gotten cancer, and it went pretty quick. He had to, they sold their house. He wanted to get my grandma and him into like a nice assisted living thing before he was too far gone, and get her all set up. So they sold their house, did a big estate sale, and he sold all of his woodworking equipment. And I was able to get a hand plane of his, which is on a wall in my shop, and it inspired. It touches every woodworking project that I do. Just because I got to put a little bit of him in there. And so when he passed away, I had to start my own kind of woodworking journey. I didn't have use of his tools anymore or his shop. So I fell in love with the hand tool side of things as well, in traditional joinery. He was a real power tool guy. I think kind of growing up in the Depression and having to do everything by hand. Like a lot of the older, like our grandfathers, they really liked power tools when they came along. And I've always really liked traditional things and just in general. So I started my own journey in kind of the hand tool world, traditional joinery, started collecting any hand tools I could, and that's where I got into my Japanese saws and Japanese tools, because they're a lot more affordable than a comparable Western saw. And so I was kind of, working at Davenport, getting my degree. Also, my grandpa had passed away, so I was starting my own woodworking journey and really kind of going down rabbit holes on that, and then started my own YouTube channel at the same time, because I was watching a lot of woodworking YouTube videos while learning all this stuff. And so I was like, oh, that looks easy. People are just making these videos about simple things and getting thousands of views, and did a little research. I was like, wow, they're making like this. They could be making probably this much money from that. That's freaking awesome. So I'm going to try this. And it was a very rude awakening at first. I can tell you that much. I fell flat on my face with all these videos that I tried at first, but I kept at it, and channel started to grow. And I was working on my MBA at Davenport, and I had become the director of public safety for kind of all the satellite campuses around the state. So I had a really good job, and but my heart, every minute I was at work, I was like thinking about woodworking, and just really was into it hard. And that's kind of when I went to that first workbench con, and made the decision shortly after to go full time doing it. But
Man. Yeah. Speaking of your grandpa's hand plane, that's probably one of my favorite videos. Work hard, stay humble sign that you made where the plane sits in.
Yeah. I absolutely do love that too. That's one of my favorites as well. I look at it all the time.
Yeah. Very cool, man. Very cool. So tell me this. So obviously that's how you got into the Japanese saws, but how did you go from just being a woodworker to now starting Temple Tool Company and designing and making your own? Because I actually bought the Japanese saws that you used to use off of your video that you had. And so how did that whole journey and idea come to be?
Well, when I was, because I loved and used and researched and knew so much about Japanese saws, when this kind of newer company on the scene, they approached me to do some sponsored videos for them. And I was looking at their lineup of saws. They sent me some saws, and from what they had, it was, good quality, something that I was confident like putting, sharing with my viewers and stuff. But there was some saws on, like they were missing some saws that I thought were really important to the woodworker should have, specifically like a ripping dovetailing saw. And it's very common in almost like all the Japanese saws that are available in the US is they really push their cross-cutting saws, and they, label them as a dovetail saw that can, for ripping. They'll almost all of them will label them as something that can rip, cross-cut, and angle cut. And that's just, while it's technically true, it's just really, it's a little bit misleading, and it's not it's not efficient at all to use a cross-cut saw. And I demonstrate that all the time with people when I show them the difference between our rip saws and our cross-cut saws. Like, use the right tool for the job, and it makes a big difference. And so I said, hey, I really think you guys should create a rip version of one of these Dozuki saws. Here's some specs that you should make it to. Would you guys be interested in making this? I would love to promote it, since like something that I could have my hands in designing. And they're like, yeah, let's do it. So I helped them design that saw, and was pretty happy with it. And then, so I basically built a relationship with, one of the people that worked there, and he even came to the US, and we became good friends. And he ended up, I all of a sudden get a message from somebody else from that company, and it wasn't him. I was like, hey, what happened to Takashi? And they're like, oh, well, he left the company. I was like, well, could I maybe have his email? Like we kind of developed a friendship. I'd like to keep in touch with him. I don't know anyone from Japan. And, like I said, he came all the way to the US to my shop during those relationships. I took him fishing, and it was pretty cool. So, I said, hey, Takashi, I'm sorry to see you left that company, and, let's keep in touch. And so we corresponded and stuff. And then I had the idea one day. I was like, you know what? Because I've always wanted to start my own tool company. Not just Japanese saws, but there's a lot of woodworking tools that I've always wanted to like improve upon and redesign. But I was like, well, where do I even begin with that? But so I reached out one day. I said, hey, Takashi, would you be interested in starting a tool company with me? Because you have these connections with manufacturing over there in Japan, which is nearly impossible for an outsider to cultivate. It's really difficult. And I have a pretty substantial following in the US. I have a long history of using these tools. I have some really cool ideas I think could make a really awesome new saw company or tool company that like the Western market, like guys like me would love. And he's like, well, I can't, it sounds like a cool idea, but I just started this new job and this and that. So kind of forgot about it. And then about 2 years later, which would have been about a year ago or so from now, I get a random message from him again. And he's like, hey, I've been really thinking about that. And, I'm not really happy doing this corporate job. I actually think it would be really cool to try starting this company with you and, do something for ourselves. And I was like, oh, well, that's great. But I just started building my house. This is like terrible timing for me. I don't have really the time or the money to do this. But he's like, well, I can handle the financial parts. Like we can get started with, some lending I can get here in Japan. And he had saved up a substantial amount of money. And I was like, all right. I felt like it was an opportunity that I definitely couldn't pass by. So even though I don't have the time for it, we made time, a lot of late nights and a lot of hard work, but went through. And so basically all the tools are kind of my both aesthetic design, which is one of the biggest like initial noticeable differences between our saws and other saws. It's just the aesthetics, the darker handle, those brass features on them, kind of give them that Western flair. I always personally really love brass accents and things. And one thing you'll notice a lot about Japanese tools is that their tools are like purely tools. They're not really, it's all about kind of function and not so much about form. And I think there's a place for form as well in tools. I really appreciate beautiful, well-made tools. I've always had this very strong philosophy of when I'm using a really nice tool that costs a lot of money, really nice fit and finish, or it was handmade, it inspires me to do better work. It inspires me to do my best work and to like do that tool justice. And so anytime I pick up a nice tool, I enjoy when I'm using it more. I take better care of it and I just do my best work with it. So that was kind of basically built this brand and this style of tool on what I would want to buy. And I spent a lot of time iterating different saw blades, testing different saw blades, like thousands and thousands of cuts. I had the manufacturers, they probably hate me. I had them send me lots of different samples of saw blades. So I would, when I'm testing the rip saw out, I would have them send me 10 different blades, all with different pitch, which is different TPI. I would vary between, maybe 16 and 22 TPI for that fine rip saw. I would have them change the rake on it, the point slope on it. I just have them change a bunch of different little things. And then I would cut and cut and cut and cut and cut. And I would cut on cherry, on walnut, on maple, on oak, on pine, like the main things that we use in the US, because we use a little bit harder woods than they typically use in Japan. They use a lot of softwood. So trying to dial these blades in to be just the best they could be for us, like Western woodworkers and type of furniture and wood species and joinery that we cut. And I really think I dialed them in to be about as good as you could possibly get them. They just cut really, really nice. And they're really versatile across most species. And that was hard to do because the Japanese have really made a really nice saw, even other brands. I mean, you're hard pressed to find a bad Japanese saw that's made in Japan. If you buy Gaokucho, Suizan, Zetsaw, they're good saws. There definitely are. Most of them, like 90% of them, are crosscut saws. It's hard to find rip saws. They just don't really make and promote them as much. So you got to get into the weeds and find like the ones that are actually rip saws, that what you would want for, ripping operations. And that's half of what we do. Our rip cuts, if you're cutting dovetail, most of those are rip cuts. If you're cutting a tenon, all your rip cuts. So a lot of people, and I see it all the time when I'm scrolling through Instagram, watching people cut joinery. I'm like, oh, there's a crosscut saw. He's spending a lot more time than he needs to with that saw in his hand. If he, had a good rip saw, he'd be like enjoying it a lot more. It'd be a lot faster. So that's, I guess, a long-winded version of how I started that tool company and the why. And it's just, again, like Providence. It was, bad timing, but I definitely feel like sometimes God gives you little hints and nudges and puts things in front of you. And, I say probably yes, and I attempt things way more than I probably should, but like building this way too big of a house, starting a tool company at the same time. But, I don't have any regrets about any of it.
That's awesome. That is awesome. So I know that you've got the dovetail saw and the rip saw and the flush cut and all. What can you tell us about any tools that you got planned that are coming in the future?
Absolutely. We have some different sized, I would say, like woodworking saw lines. So we have some shorter Dozuki saws, which if you're listening, you're not familiar. Dozuki saw is a Japanese saw that has a back to it. It's kind of like a Western dovetail saw or tenon saw or sash saw that has a back to it to support the blade. A Ryoba saw is the larger two-sided saws that have a rip side on one side and a cross cut on the other. And it's just a super versatile general purpose saw for cutting boards down to length or ripping boards. Or for me, I mainly use it for like medium to large joinery or like table leg type joinery. And then we have a flush cut saw currently. We're developing some shorter versions of the Ryoba and Dozuki saws just because the market kind of demands it. I personally really just like the 9.5, the kind of standard size ones, but there's a lot of people like Amazon buyers especially really like the shorter ones for whatever reason it is. I don't understand it. I would always rather have that one, but so we're going to make basically really nice quality versions of some shorter versions of what we currently have. And I'm also testing some different blades to try to create like an actually true like cross cut and rip cut blade by doing something where it's almost like our combination blades for like a table saw where there's a series of rip teeth or cross cutting teeth followed by like a rip tooth. So we're trying to test that. It's doable, but it's much more expensive. So we have to kind of find the balance of, we're trying to make a smaller, more affordable saw to meet this demand. But if I put a blade that will be a combination blade to accomplish more for more people, so a person can buy that little short saw and use it for multiple things, well, then that's going to increase the price and kind of what's the point at that point? So we're going through some iterations of blades, and there's some other tooth geometry that we can do as well to kind of create something that's in the middle. But also creating some timber framing saws, which I'm really excited about because I also love timber framing and teach timber framing. And there's not really some affordable, great timber framing saws on the market. We're making a cross cut and a rip cut version of that as well. Because essentially there's not even rip cut versions of it. Because most of the Japanese timber framing saws that people use are by a company, Silky, which is a Japanese company that makes super nice saws. But they make those for like green, like limbing trees and logs and stuff. So it's a really aggressive crosscut tooth, which is what we want in timber framing. Designed for green wet wood, which is what you are typically cutting when you're cutting timbers. But they don't have a rip version because all their saws are designed for like limbing, and you're never out there in the woods like ripping a log down in the middle. You would split it with an axe. But with timber framing, when you're trying to cut specific fine joinery, there is a lot of opportunities when we're cutting that we need a rip saw, and there's just really nothing great that's available. So I've been again testing a lot of those blades. That's been exciting. I have a really cool marking knife coming that is inspired by there's a famous pocket knife in Japan called a Higonogami knife. And after the samurai basically were, I guess, outlawed, all these amazing sword blacksmiths kind of like ran out of work, didn't have work anymore. And as far as I know, like how the story goes, is one of these blacksmiths came up with this little pocket knife. It's kind of like a friction folder, and it has a little Japanese sword, a katana shape to it. And it's just a very popular, historic, famous knife design in Japan. It's like a folded piece of brass and a blade. And it's just really simple and elegant and cool. And all the little Japanese kids carried them around and sharpened their pencils with them. All the women had them in their gardening supplies for pruning. They were just everywhere. And I loved these little knives. And I had the idea one day, wouldn't it be awesome if we, instead of that little double bevel pocket knife blade, we could put a marking knife, single bevel marking knife, Japanese blade in it. And so I took one of my Japanese marking knives and I cut it up. I disassembled one of those Higonogami knives and I made one. I welded there's a little tab on the blade that you use for opening it up. And I basically made my own, and I sent it to my business partner. I was like, hey, can you approach a Higonogami manufacturing? Can we see if we can have these made? Because especially when we're timber framing, we're walking around and we have like a tool pouch or your pocket, and that marking knife will just cut right through it automatically. So having one that could fold would be awesome for timber framing, but then also on the workbench too. Just a really nice, and it could just be a pocket knife as well. So I'm really excited about that personally. I hope that does well. And then we also have, we're working on developing and finding some relationships for chisels as well, which is very difficult because the Japanese chisels, unlike saws, just can't be mass produced efficiently or to the right kind of quality. They really need to be hand forged. And to find a blacksmith to do it, they're just like usually a guy that's in a 10 by 10 little forge. He's been doing it for like 10 generations in his family. And they're just not really interested in making them for us. They make a handful and they sell them to the local tool stores. It's a really difficult nut to crack. So we do have a couple prospects that are looking very promising. We've been getting some samples and working out some things. So we for sure will have some stuff coming. It'll definitely probably be more like small batch orders on our website. They won't be as readily available as the saws are for sure. And they'll be quite a bit more expensive too. And then I'm also talking to an American blacksmith, an actual one that's he was on the Forged in Fire show. He's a really talented blacksmith, to maybe have him make our Japanese chisels. So we're not totally married to having everything made in Japan, and everything that Temple Tool sells doesn't need to be a Japanese tool. Our saws already have that Western kind of influence on it, and there's other tools as well. We're pretty darn committed to not have things made in China, so you won't ever see that. But having something made in the U.S. or Japan is kind of what we're really trying to do. So
that's awesome. You'll keep the quality up that way.
Yeah, definitely. And just, not to offend people, but just the principle of, Chinese manufacturing, I just don't really want to have our stuff made in China. Because you can get some really high quality stuff made there. That's for sure. But I'd rather, support the U.S. or my business partner's country as well, Japan. So that's what we're pretty committed to doing.
That's awesome.
Absolutely. As you're talking, I looked up your guys' website and looking at your saws, and I see you guys have a pretty heavy Amazon presence. So you have an Amazon store, right?
It's basically all of our sales are through Amazon right now. Yeah. We're working at getting
your price is phenomenal. I would have expected this saw to be 3 times that price.
I know, and that's what a lot of people think as well. And I think they they should probably be charged like a price at double or maybe triple. But we're able to make them. Fortunately, we just through our manufacturing and a lot of work that we put in can keep our cost relatively affordable. We don't make a ton, that's for sure. But I'd rather, just have an affordable, really well-made, tool without gouging people. Because one of the beautiful things when I got into the Japanese saws was how affordable they were. And I was able to get like 3 or 4 nice saws for the cost of a single Western saw. And we're, trying really hard to kind of keep them affordable and still produce a really high quality tool. And I definitely think we're doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a Suizan dovetail saw. Works fantastically.
Definitely.
And I'm looking at I'm eyeing up the Ryoba because I have the Harbor Freight version of that.
Oh
that I
man, that's
bought
probably
like 10 years ago. And even though it's dull as crap, I still grab it for certain things because I just love the style of it.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you're
So
gonna have
I'm
to
eyeing that
have
up.
to get you a rival one. You'll be like, oh
Yeah.
man.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
fantastic.
Very cool.
Yeah. So what do you got in the workshop now? What are you working on?
I haven't been doing it. I have a table that I've literally been working on for like 2 years now. I was supposed to start that and finish that before we broke ground on the house 2 years ago, but I was plugging away on it really nicely. It's like a George Nakashima. He's a very famous Japanese woodworker. It's inspired by his designs, and it's going to be like a copper river table. So like real copper that's laminated to a piece of MDO. So it'll only be like I think it's a 21 gauge sheet of copper, still hugely expensive. And it'll be laminated to a piece of MDO and then dropped into a routed out groove between the two pieces of wood, like how they do the glass river tables. I did that with a steel river table before, so it's going to kind of be the same technique. But I got the base all done. I was coming down my stairs and slipped like in the wintertime and just destroyed my lower back on one of the stair rungs, and was just in excruciating pain it was like bedridden for like 2 weeks. And it's been sitting here forever, and I just started working on it again, finally finished up the base, but mainly it's the house. The project's the house. This big, huge behemoth of a house that I built I wish it would have made half the size, not nearly as complicated of a design. But that's really the most of my woodworking. It's either testing the saw blades and cuts and things like that. So I'm still staying up on my sawing and things, but I haven't really made a piece of furniture in a little while, which is tough on the soul. It's definitely hard.
Yeah, but that house, man, it's just phenomenal. Oh,
thank you. It's going to be a good one if we ever can get in there. But
how long do you think it'll be before you have it done and y'all move in?
It'll for sure be before this Christmas. That's for sure. We're definitely far enough. We're starting to move along a little quicker now. One of the biggest holdups was the metal roof that I decided to put on myself, and just extremely slow and hard. But yeah, I'm actually hoping like late summer, early fall. That's what I'm shooting for.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's not far away.
No, it's going to be coming quick. So hopefully I can make that deadline. That's for sure.
I'm sure that'll make your wife happy too. So you were talking about living in 700 square foot with 3 kids. Ironically, my nephew is a pastor, and for 5 years, his wife, and their 3 children, are like, now they're like, the oldest one's like 12, but at the time they had like a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 6-year-old. all living in a 700 square foot apartment in LA
Oh
where he was a
gosh.
pastor. Like, yeah, it was
At least I have some acreage here that we can, during the summertime, get out of the house and stuff. But
yeah. Theirs was a 1 bedroom apartment. So all 3 kids stayed in the bedroom. That was where they, had bunk beds and everything. And then they had a Murphy bed in the living room. So once the kids went to bed, they would slide the couch out of the way, pull the Murphy bed down. That's where they slept. And then in the morning, fold up the Murphy bed.
oh man,
Yeah. But that's what they
very
felt.
similar. Yeah. How long were they there?
They lived in that apartment for like 5 years, but it's on a pastor's salary. That's all they could afford. And
Yeah.
that was like 2,400 bucks a month in LA for a 1 bedroom apartment. It was crazy, but,
Jeez.
yeah.
Yeah, it sounds a lot like mine. We've been up there for 3 years now. And same thing, the kids all share 1 bedroom, 3, 5, and 6, and 7. And then my wife and I have, it's kind of like our beds. I built like a half wall where our kitchen starts. And so our bed's kind of behind that. At least we don't have to like put it in a Murphy thing or every morning, a Murphy bed situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been very tight and crammed, but it's actually been and very stressful too at times. But it's been like some of the best years of our lives, and I think it was only supposed to be a 1-year plan, and now we're past 3 years, and we're gonna look back on these years and these pictures and these memories, and just it's gonna be just the great it's such a journey we've gone through, and it's really I think shown a lot of strength in our marriage. I talked to Jessica about that a lot, my wife. I'm like just really proud of us to be able to make it through these less than desirable, because we had a nice house that we sold to renovate this and start the house, and we moved up there. I told her 1 year, and it's been 3 years and cluttered with kids' toys galore, and there's a lot of fights and stuff, but it's just really brought us close. And I'm always I'm always very, I think at least one good attribute that I have is that I'm always very grateful for what I have and how blessed I've been to be just born in the time that I've been born in the country that I've been born into, with the parents that I had, the opportunities that I've had. I've never once been hungry a day in my life. I've never been cold. I've never been on the streets. Just if you look at what we have in our little 700 square feet, we have it better than probably like 95% of the world.
Yes.
So I think about that a lot. And, I had some really hard days, some really depressing days. There's a tremendous amount of work. I didn't get enough work done. And being a YouTuber, I'm kind of like, everybody sees what I do all the time, but I'm like really kind of isolated and lonely at the same time sometimes. And I'll sit out there and I have this is a weird vision that comes in my head sometimes. I think about the guys that were storming the beaches of Normandy and riding the boat there. And I think how much they were wishing in those moments to be back home. They would give anything to switch places with me and my BS complaints and my BS worries and stresses. Those guys that were having to go into flying bullets, a ton of them, they knew they were probably going to die, how much they would give to have my problems. So I think about that a lot. It's a little weird. It's a weird thing that pops in my head a lot. Or I just think about all the people in the world that have it so much worse than me.
Oh yeah.
And so I'm even though it's been a tough several years up there, tight in there, I just still think I'm one of the most lucky, blessed people ever.
Yeah.
One
of my favorite passages in the Bible, that one of the first verses I memorized in Thessalonians 5:16, 17, and 18. It says, give thanks always, pray without ceasing, and give thank. No, it says, I got that backwards. I'm drawing a blank. The last one is give thanks in all circumstances. And, it doesn't say give thanks for the circumstance, but to give thanks in it. And I think what you said just is we could all do more of, because the reality is there is not a poor person in America. If you go to a third world country, I don't know where all you got to go while you were in the Air Force, but I've been to some places where, dude, like generations, not a mom, dad, and a kid, but grandma, grandpa, a mom, dad, and kids all live in what we would call a storage shed here.
Yeah.
Here in America, I get tired of, there's something on the Instagram the other day, and it was talk about the average median income and average house and all, and what it took to live comfortably in America. And it said you needed to make $243,000. And I'm like, I have never in my life come close to making that kind of money.
Mm-hmm.
But when you start talking averages, you got these people with $36 million vacation homes. And I mean, just think about, like, most people in America have a house for their cars to park in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'm often ashamed about what I have as well. I think about that as well. In this house that I'm like, what am I doing? That's like sinful excess. And I know there's passages in the Bible that say it's okay to have, like, to build stuff for your, like, build wealth and prosper. But I often look at what I have and I'm like, man, you have too much. And it's a tough thing to think about a lot, but
yeah, I do the same thing. But
yeah,
I think when you give gratitude for it, and that's the thing about stuff, as long as the stuff doesn't become an idol or a god to us, as long as the stuff is a gift from God, whether it be this, computer that we're filming on right now, or a table saw in my shop, or whatever. I think as long as we're using it to bring glory to God, the stuff doesn't matter, because obviously we wouldn't be having this conversation right now if it weren't for YouTube and you doing Saul's, or, and Will having the idea to start a podcast, and us having this technology with these microphones to record it, so they're all tools now for spreading the gospel. And I think as long as we use those gifts, whether it's, a table saw or whatever, in your case, man, I mean, just think of all the people that watch your channel. And I was listening to Pastor Derwin Gray today, and he really spoke it well, saying that, if you work at Bank of America, that's your mission field. If you work, at the school district as a teacher, that's your mission field. In your case, it's YouTube. Will is at the bank. Me, it's when I'm making signs and install them. So that's our mission field. And then there's people that we know that are meant to go overseas and serve as missionaries, but we all have the same mission, and that's to spread the gospel.
Well, it's well said. I appreciate hearing something like that too, because it's just sometimes I have, guilt that I'm not doing more of that. Like you say, just give it all up and be a missionary. Because there's, like, things in the gospel that make you, or in the Bible that would, you read and you're like, man, I'm just not doing what I should be doing. But keeping that in mind and just trying to, spread just well-being and knowledge, and being a good person as much as you can.
Yep.
Absolutely. As what we talk about, I think of Ecclesiastes. So King Solomon, he'd done everything you could think of in the world, and all the wealth and all of the whatever. And he writes, it's all in the wind.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Everything that we have, I think of the same thing, that, what we have, and all the land that we're able to afford, and the big house that we have, and all this stuff doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things.
Right? No, not even close.
Yep.
Not even close. And, I feel bad for the people that place their hope in that stuff. There's a lot of that.
Hmm.
Um, and unfortunately, the world sees material possession and things as success. But I see, man, how are you living out your life, right? Um, are you living in the way of the Lord, and are you blessing people and trying to spread that joy and that love? Because otherwise, I mean, what's it mean? What's it matter? Doesn't matter anything, right?
No.
So
Yeah.
yeah, good stuff. Have you done any woodworking?
No, I have moved a ton of dirt, rocks, and everything, getting everything ready for farm season, man. So, but I will say this, like, our irrigation gets turned on. Once I get all my planting done, I am gonna be set to jet and have a ton of shop time. And unless it gets slammed with sign work, but I have gotten so much done. Like I know that you've never seen my place, but if you saw it 6 months ago and all I've gotten done in the last 6 months outside, it's just really coming along. So I'm excited. You know, when we bought this place, literally the weeds were 5 foot tall, covered the entire farm. And I mean, you couldn't see it, total dump. So, Chris, me and my wife, she's from Las Vegas and she's one of four girls. And she has a sister in Colorado, one in Oregon, and one that lived in North Carolina. And that's how my wife ended up in North Carolina, where I was stationed at Pope Air Force Base. And got out, started a sign, screen print, and embroidery business. And her sister was in the Army at Fort Bragg, and she got out and started a lawn care business, her and her husband. And I had done their logo and T-shirts and signs and everything. And one day she comes in to order some shirts, and here's her sister with her. And when she came back 2 weeks later to pick T-shirts up, I'm like, so was that your sister that was with you? And she's like, that was my very single sister. Rest is
Oh man.
history, but my wife and Kimmy were insanely close. They're the two youngest, and Kimmy got in a car accident into 2019, ended up passing away, and then the pandemic happened in 2020. Had lost a business, and my wife's like, I want to move back west, so we sold everything we had in North Carolina, commercial property, house, rental house, everything, and
Wow.
packed up a U-Haul and bought a dumpy 1909 farmhouse with a little over 9 acres in Colorado. And so we have been fixing that up, building a new house. And speaking of, you've been living up in yours for 3 years. So I still have cabinets that I don't have doors on in my kitchen and bathroom because it's like I got to work and support the
Yeah.
family. I got a kid in college that I got to make enough money to pay tuition. Got a farm I'm trying to get going outside. And so, yeah, if you come over, maybe we'll have a contest, see who can finish first.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I would say in the next week, I'll be back in the shop and be back in the shop a lot, but got to get everything ready for planting. How about you? I know you did you make a new Bible binder machine or something?
No, well, I have a bunch of MDFs in my shop, and so I needed a new press, and I just used some MDF and made a press, which actually worked really well. I'm happy with that. But no, I actually have done some woodworking. So our church does a youth basketball program. I've talked about. I ref in it and help out in that. And the pastor of our church is one of the coaches, and he came to me. He said, "Hey, could you make me plaques for my team? I want to give my team plaques for the year. They've all done really well and whatnot." I said, "Yeah." And his father and mother-in-law live down the road from me, and they have a bunch of wood in the barn. And he's like, "Hey, I'll get some wood from the farm, and then you can just use that." And so he drops off two rough cut pieces of red oak, and got the planer out and milled them up, and got them down cut to size and threw them on the laser and made some plaques. And so that was fun, easy, put some of my finish on it, and there we go. Well, then my wife, Chris, my wife is a stained glass artist, so makes all kinds of stuff out of stained glass. And she made a cross panel. It's like 9x13 cross panel, and she wanted me to build I've built several of these encapsulating frames for them. And so she's like, hey, can you make this? We've got this weekend, we're going down to Harrisburg, PA for a craft fair at her brother's church down there. And she's like, hey, I need that frame built for the cross. I'm like, oh crap, I forgot about that. Well, I didn't feel like planing anything down. And the only thing I had in the shop that was planed and ready to go was some hickory. I don't know why I do this to myself, because I like hickory, but if you've worked with hickory, you'll learn to not like it, because you know how it like splinters real hard, real bad, and how like sanding it just gets like the pits in it from like the so I just had a heck of a time. I mean, it wasn't hard. I just like did my 45s, got everything glued up, and then the sanding just like trying to get all these like, oh my gosh, yeah. And so but it turned out well. She's happy, I'm happy, and so I was able to make some sawdust this week, and it felt really good, honestly, to get out in the shop. And my shop is our 2-car garage, and it's not heated. And so living here in northwestern Pennsylvania, it's been cold.
Yeah.
And so I don't go out there in the wintertime. I'm busy. I work in the corporate world, a high stress job. And so when I get home, I spend time with the family, and I'm not going to go out and freeze my butt off out in the shop. It's just not going to happen. So that's why I started doing Bible rebinding, something that I could do inside on the kitchen table while my wife was doing glass stuff. And so I ended up working out, and I really enjoy it. But yeah, so this week I've made sawdust, got the laser engraver out, got that dusted off, done some design work with that, and rebound a Bible. It's been a good week.
That's a pretty good week. I've watched lots of on book rebinding and book making. That's a really, really beautiful videos, and it's a really awesome art form. And then I also, like you mentioned, stained glass art too. That's something I really want to get into someday. I want to make some stained glass windows or door inserts or something. Those are both two very cool arts and hobbies that you guys are into.
Yeah, my wife, she a funny story about that. I think I've told it before on the podcast, but years ago, before we started having kids, I'm somebody that has a lot of hobbies. I'm a woodworker. I've been playing drums for 25 years. I collect watches, pocket knives. I like to learn about things and whatnot, and collect things and try new things out. My wife is very much an introvert, and she likes to read. That's like her thing. And she came to me, this is a long time ago. She said, hey, I think I want to try stained glass. Try making. I didn't know what that meant. What do you mean? What do you mean stained glass? Like, and so she like showed me some like things on Instagram. I'm like, that's pretty cool. I said, absolutely. Like, if she came to me and wanted to try something. So we went and bought all the stuff, spent like $500 on all the stuff she needed to get started. And she did it for a while. Then we started having kids, and she put it down. When we moved from Tennessee back here to Pennsylvania, we made the decision that she was going to stay home with the kids. She actually came to me and said, hey, I want to stay home and be a stay-at-home mom and raise our kids and that. Mm-hmm. And so when that happened, she had a little more time on her hands because our son started going to preschool, and she got out the stained glass stuff, ended up taking over my shop. I've got a big 2-car garage, and I'd go out there to do some woodworking, and it'd be stained everywhere, just glass things everywhere. And so finally, we have a sunroom on the back of our house. It's a big, was it 15 by 30 sunroom? Yeah, that's about right. And so there was a hot tub in there. The previous owners ripped the hot tub out, and I built her a custom studio with a custom glass storage, and then they had a ceiling, like a bathroom vent in the ceiling above the hot tub, and I took that and encapsulated it and brought down a 4-inch like a dust collector hose to where when you solder, she can turn that fan on and it sucks the fumes out. And so anyways, she's gotten into that and has just taken off with it. She's made stuff for Tom, and several people that listen to the podcast have bought stuff from her.
Oh, that's awesome. I'll have to check it out.
But yeah, Grace's Glassworks on Instagram. That's her thing. You know what's funny? Instagram is the weirdest thing. She will post reels every once in a while. Whenever she posts a reel of her grinding glass, she'll get like 200,000 views. Yeah,
do that more often.
Right. Right. So, yeah, no kidding. But yeah, so that's what's been going on in my shop. I've done some woodworking and all kinds of stuff, and working and volunteering at church. I've just been busy, man. I'm ready for the season to kind of die down, and we got a trip planned in May to go down, take the kids to DC to see all the museums, and so I'm looking forward to getting away with that. But yeah, good stuff. So, Chris, where can people find your socials, and then your social security number? Don't do that. I work in banking and IT security. Don't do that, please.
Don't give that out.
Don't give that out. And then Temple Tool and that. Where can people find you?
So both myself and Temple Tool are on Instagram. So Third Coast Craftsman, search that, or Temple Tool Co. On Instagram. I'm also on YouTube. And then Temple Tool as well has some videos on YouTube. Mainly there are how to use the saws, which is, you'll see me doing that, doing those videos. But yeah, mainly, Instagram and YouTube. We don't have TikTok or anything. I have stuff on Facebook as well, but mainly Instagram and YouTube is where most of the fun stuff's going on.
Awesome, man. We appreciate you coming on and sharing your story and talking about your life, and love seeing what you're doing, and
it was my honor.
Follow and watch you, and yeah, absolutely. And if I'm ever up that way, because I've always told Drew, if I'm ever up his way,
I'll for sure
get you guys up and do lunch somewhere or something. But
he's only
see your shop now. How many acres do you have
it's
over
like
there?
14.
Yeah,
14
awesome.
here on the river. So if you like fishing, we'll got lots of good fishing right out back.
Yeah. It's funny about acreage. We have 25 acres. 20 of it is all wooded. And so I bought a 4G trail cam that connects to cellular towers and stuff, and put it out there. And I don't hunt. I just want to see what's out there. I just want to see the animals and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I do shoot guns and whatnot, but
do you have any big bucks to roll through?
Oh yeah, we've got
Pennsylvania's a good state.
Yeah, we this past season. So right now I just got a picture of a half rack, just a small little guy with a half rack. But I had a 12-point and a 10-point on my property. We have a pear and apple orchard out back, and so they
I love that.
They love that. But I've had bobcat on my property.
Oh, that's cool.
We've got Fisher cat. I don't know if you know what a Fisher cat is.
Yeah, we see those up in the UP.
Yeah, they're mean.
Big giant.
So yeah, they'll come in and destroy your chicken coop.
Yeah,
and just for game. They don't eat them. They just kill them for sport.
Vicious.
So. But yeah, so good stuff. Well, Chris, man, we appreciate you coming on, and
absolutely
look forward to seeing that house being finished. So I'm gonna October. I'm gonna be watching. I'm gonna be like, all right, man,
better be done
in there yet.
Come hell or high water, we'll be done.
Awesome. Very good, man. Well, thank you. Until next time, I'm Will from Flat Woodworks.
I'm Tom from Mountain Valley Maker.